So, another day, another Zelda game to do. If I keep up this pace, I might be all caught up when Breath of the Wild 2 comes out. Hopefully. Maybe. I just dated this video. Oh well. But you know me, I like to do things in order because I like to see how things evolve. Or is it OCD kicking in? Maybe a little bit of both. So whatever the case, I'll just go over the history of this game because, well, it's a pretty short Zelda game, all things considered. It was originally released for the Game Boy Advance as the multiplayer add-on for the Link to the Past remake, which I didn't cover in my original Link to the Past video because, to be perfectly honest, there's really not much to say about it. It is a perfectly playable game, despite the screen crunch, and you have to listen to Link verbally announcing whenever he swings his sword. But with the SNES version being the one re-released on virtually every other platform available, it's not the version I go back to whenever I want to replay A Link to the Past. But anyway, yeah, the Four Swords game. It was released as an add-on. Unfortunately, it was a multiplayer-only experience. It required use of the Game Boy Advance link cable to do so, which I'm not even sure I still have. Fortunately, the game was re-released for the DSiWare, but was rather short-lived. It was then re-released for the 3DS Virtual Console, but only for a short time. I'm hoping for a future re-release on Switch Online. You know, when Nintendo actually remembers that there is a demand for their classic games on newer consoles. Come on, Nintendo, you used to be so good at it! So the plot of the game. Well, one day Zelda takes Link to the location of the Four Sword, where she tells him of the seal of the Four Sword, which seals a demon named Vati. How do you pronounce that? This is why these games should have voice acting. Basically, Vati kidnaps Zelda, nothing new there, planning to make her his bride. She's like 12 in this game, I think? So anyway, Link wakes up and is told by the fairies that he must use the power of the Four Sword, and Link splits into 4 copies of himself. Green, red, blue, and purple. I also apologize for the quality of the footage. The 3DS recording didn't turn out too good in this case. It keeps blinking and freezing. So whatever the case, the first level is designed to teach you the mechanics of the game. You're supposed to be able to play with up to 4 players, but unfortunately the 3DS version only works with local multiplayer. And this game is not exactly easy to get, so therefore I have to use me, myself, and I. Fortunately, this version actually allows you to play in single player. The Game Boy Advance version is virtually unplayable unless you have 4 GBA link cables. Which is stupid. This is why I'm in favor of this game getting some kind of re-release in Nintendo. Basically, instead of keeping your items, you have to find them. You always start with the shield, but you can find a various item throughout the stage that you will most likely need to progress through the level. For example, the Rock's cape is back, bombs can now be remote detonated, so Breath of the Wild was not the first game to do that. You got the magnet gloves, the bow and arrow, which I only used in the final level, to be honest. The game was also developed by Capcom, so it has a lot in common with the Oracle games. Supposedly, this game was a leftover of the original Oracle trilogy plan. This game was actually the first to use the Wind Waker art style. Technically, as this release predates the Wind Waker by about 3 months, so it was kind of a preview of the art style. The game ranks as the 3rd game in the Zelda timeline, taking place just before Ocarina of Time. Remember when they said the Ocarina of Time was the first Zelda story, but that ended up becoming not true? Well, that reminds me, I'm getting close to the Minish Cap, the game that gave the origin story for Link's hat. Until Skyward Sword had him already wearing the hat, but that's another story. So the first level of the game is the Sea of Trees. Yeah, the overworld map is very simplistic in this game. Basically what makes Four Swords stand out is that the level changes every time you go in. So you may be doing something very different each time you play the level. Your basic goal is to get to the end of a warp point and then go on to the second part of the level. The layout of the level changes. That's why there's no real guide to this game. There are times where I was stuck on a level, but I quickly figured out what the passage was to progress. Four Swords is a very puzzle-driven game, which makes the items more incidental than anything else. Where Four Swords shines is how you use your dual character to your advantage, particularly switching to your characters with the shoulder buttons, which works a hell of a lot better on the 3DS than it does with the DSi. This game seems to be a weird mix of A Link to the Past and Wind Waker, a style that continued with the Four Swords adventures. The second level is Taurus Cave, then you go to Death Mountain, so what I will say about the Four Swords is that they are not lacking in variety. Basically, you play 2 levels, then you beat a boss, which is pretty easy. You see, what this game departs from other Zelda games is that if a Link dies, it costs rupees to revive that Link. It starts at 50, but it goes up by 50 each time. I don't mind this because the game throws rupees at you, and you want to collect them. You can clear the level multiple times to get different rewards, such as getting silver keys or gold keys. The final level, Vati's Castle, is a long climb, or at least it was for me. This was the only level where I had to use the bow and arrow, which is very odd. But then comes the next part. Vati comes down and fighting him is very easy. He's the wind mage, so it's about using that to your advantage by detonating bombs and then knocking him down. So you believe that the final battle is over, right? Nope, not quite. Vati comes back down, and now you have the tennis ball as attacks back at him. That tradition in Zelda will never die. So Vati is once again sealed in the Force Sword, and Zelda is saved and Link is merged back into one. All's well that ends well. That was pretty small in comparison to other Zelda games. The Anniversary Edition adds the Realm of Memories, which takes you to old locations from A Link to the Past and Link's Awakening, but if I really wanted to do that, I'd just play those games. So that's The Legend of Zelda 4 Swords. It's nothing more than a fun little game. It should definitely be played with friends. It stands out as the first Zelda game to ever use multiplayer, which is something the series never did, and still doesn't really do all that often, and that's fine. I like my Zeldas being single player. Anyway, did you enjoy the video? Please hit that like, bell, and subscribe button if you did. And the next time I do Zelda, it'll be either the Wind Waker or the Link's Awakening remake that's coming out next month. Wow. So join me then.